Okay, welcome to my tutorial Chaotica for Dummies, Wallies and Numpties as well. In this tutorial we're going to learn the basics of how Chaotica works, basically where do I click to do this and that, and we are going to make this fractal with snails in it. Okay, so first of all I'm going to show you what this looks like in Chaotica. So here we've got my snails, and then if I open this, don't worry about that now, we'll learn how to do all of that later. If I show you the structure of this fractal, you can see this whole long tree here which shows all the different parts of the fractal, but it's quite confusing to look at if you don't know what these things mean. So we're going to forget about all that, and we'll start from scratch. So we'll go to the top where it says File, and we will click New Empty World. I don't know why it's called World, that's just the name that Chaotica uses for a new fractal. So we're just going to click on that. And then we're going to have a little look at the main parts of this screen here, but I'll fix something first so that we can get started when I've repaired all this. Okay, looking fine. Right, so on this main screen you've got several panels. So this here is the random world generator. We won't be needing this now. This is for the random examples that you can see at the beginning when you first open Chaotica, and it's got some settings that let you determine what kind of random examples you would like to see, but we don't need that now because we're going to make our own fractal now. Then these render settings are all about the quality of the image that you will get when you are finished working and when you save your fractal as an image. So we've got the width and the height here, that's pretty straightforward. Right now I can't personally go over 1024 because I haven't paid for the full license, so I'm limited to this, but if you've paid you can increase this. Right, then the AA level, it's got to do with the quality and the detail of the fractal. So if you're trying to make a fractal that will have lots of tiny little details, it's better to have a higher AA level, such as 3, so we can just move that up. But for the snails, 2 will be alright. Then you could also choose ultra quality to increase the quality. And you can click Save Alpha if you want to have a transparent background, but we don't want that. We do want to have a background that we can actually see. Right, over here on these imaging settings, you've got several controls. For example, you've got the brightness, which is just literally what it says. It makes your image brighter or darker. This one is quite high at the moment. I'm not quite sure why that is, because normally it should be on a low value around 4. Then you've got the gamma. It's a little bit similar to brightness. I don't know the technical details of it, but basically the more gamma you have, the more grainy little dusty bits you'll have on your picture. Then another important factor here is the vibrancy. This will change the strength of your colors, and this should be a low number. It should be around 1, 1.2, 1.4. It shouldn't be something like 10 or 20. If you increase the vibrancy, it will make the colors stronger, but if the colors are quite dark in themselves, such as dark blue, it might actually make them even darker. So it depends on the fractal that you're making. Right, these response curves are basically advanced color settings. We won't be using them right now, but we might look at them later. And then the background colors obviously let you choose what kind of background you want. Now I've got a white background. That's not what you normally do. Normally, to have a black background, you put all these 3 colors, red, green and blue, on 0.1, and that's how you get a black background. Now if you want this black background to have a slight bluish tinge, we could change the blue value to 0.2, and it makes it dark blue. but we're going to go back to black for the moment. Right, so now we can get started making our snails. And the first thing that we'll need is a window that lets us do work. So we click on Window up here and we open World Editor. As I said before, when we open this new fractal, world just means fractal here. So we can open this, and now there's actually nothing, basically. Okay, we've got two little tabs here, Mode Editor and World Node, and they haven't got anything in them. That's because we've actually not made anything yet. But before we start, let's explore the settings first. So here we've got these two arrows which says show transform nodes. Don't worry about what that means. It just means that you can see the bits of the fractal that you can change. Then we've got show shader nodes. That lets us see what part, what color each part of the fractal is. And then we've got show selector nodes, which has also got to do with this whole structure, which isn't there yet. So the first thing that we're going to do is we have to click New Iterator. That's what you always do when you start a new fractal. Click New Iterator at the top left here. And then you can see this little tree, which has got lots of confusing abbreviations and words in it. But the good news is you don't need to know what these mean, okay? So don't worry about this word iterator. For us, it just means it's a part of the structure of your fractal. Right, then I can see another little word, Flam3 transform. What the heck? That's what I thought when I first started using Chaotica. I had no idea what this is. But there's a little plus symbol, so I'm going to click this, and then we can see more items here. Right, let's just have a little look at these little tabs at the bottom. So right now we are on world nodes, and this means that you can see the structure of your fractal, and you can click on particular parts to highlight them in orange. This means that you will be working on this bit of the fractal. Then to actually do something on it, you go to Mode Editor, and this lets you do things, but right now there's nothing to work on. It just says name transforms. Not very exciting. Right, now we need to have a little look at this in detail. So it says transforms here, and again, it doesn't matter what that means. Basically, the transform is the part of the fractal that lets you add little shapes and patterns. But right now there's nothing here, it just says transforms. So we need to go to the top and click New Transform. And now you can see that a plus has appeared again. And if we click there, it says New Variation. And if we click on that new variation, there's nothing again. So we can look at the other screen here and there's still nothing. That's because we still haven't done anything. So we need to go to the world editor, and now we're still on world nodes. Remember, that's the bit where you can see the structure of your fractal. By structure, I mean the list of bits that you've already made. Now we go to node editor. Ooh, and we can see that it says linear there. So something has happened there. And if I look at my screen again, I should be able to see something there, but I'm not. So I'm quickly going to fix this problem. Ignore me while I'm doing this. It might, yeah, that's because the colors aren't available. Well, that's interesting. Right. This is actually a problem. I'm just going to quickly start Chaotica again. It's eaten up my colors because I showed you this picture before. So I very quickly need to open this again. Chaotica, here we go. Here we go, and now it'll have the colors and we'll be able to see something. So go away, random picturizer, I don't want you. And we'll click New Empty World. and then where it says window, we'll go to world editor, and we'll just repeat the first steps. So I'll click new iterator, then I click the little plus on Flam3 transforms, then I click transform. Now there's nothing here. I'm on the node editor now, by the way. Now I click new transform and it says linear there. Right, now we'll go to the preview and see what it's got there. Oh, where is it? There should be something here now. So I just might have to, yes, right. The first color on the gradient is black, and that's why we can't see anything, so I'm going to change that color. Don't worry about the colors right now, I'm just fixing this so that we can move on, and we'll learn more about colors later on. Right, so here on the main screen we can see this square now. Well, that's not anywhere near as interesting as the snails that we want to make. Sorry, I just need to increase the size as well. There we go. Right, come on. Okay, here we go. So here's my little square, and this square is here because if we look at the world iterator, the world editor, we can see it says linear here. So linear makes this square kind of shape. Now we'll just look at the world nodes again to see where we are. So we're on the first iterator. We have clicked on transform, we have added a new transform, and now it says new variation, and this new variation is linear. Right, so why don't I just click here? Okay, so we've got a little list, a little drop down menu here with lots of funny names in it, like bipolar, blade, blob, blur, diamond, exponential, fisheye, flower, flux, and whatnot. And these are all the different little shapes that we can make. So I'll just show you one of them. I'll choose blur, and then we'll see what that makes. Aha, so we've got a shiny circle here. We need to open the world editor again. Let's try a different shape then. Let's say we will try, what's a good one? Power is a good one, I think. Or maybe not. Oh, where is it? Power. Might not work. Let's see. So if we choose power, and then we look at our preview again. We get this circle. Oh wow, fantastic. Right, so let's open the world editor again. Clearly that's not what we want. So what I did to make those snails is, on this transform, I chose spiral, and then you can see this little slot here where you can enter basically the strength of that pattern. Okay, it says spiral 1 now, and that makes this shape. Well, okay, whatever. Yeah, fascinating. So clearly we're a far way away from making the snails that I showed you at the beginning, but it's better than nothing. We're getting there. So just to experiment, I could now try and see what happens if I put 2.0 there and press enter. So that gives us a bigger spiral. However, that's not what I used, so I'm just going to put 1.0. Okay, so let's recap. We've got, oh, it's still rendering. We've got a little spiral here, but it's not very exciting. Basically, it's just a line, and it's not really filling the picture with anything. So I'm going to this world editor, and then I'll go back to world nodes here so that I can see the different parts of my fractal. And I am going to use something that's a little bit more advanced. I am going to click on Flam 3 transform, and then I will go to the node editor down here again where I can work on this thing, and I'm going to click show pre-transform. So a pre-transform is basically a little shape that will be applied before the other shape, just pre, like in pre-war or any word that's got pre in it. And I'm gonna click this. Have I done this twice now? Maybe. Right. Oh, sorry, I've just gone back to world nodes, and now it says pre-transforms there, but that's all there is. So I'm going to click on pre-transforms and go back to the node editor, and there's nothing here, so I need to go to the top on the left and click new transform, and there's my new transform. And again, this says linear because linear is kind of the default setting for all your transforms. Now I want to fill in my snail with some kind of texture or some kind of filling, and in this case I chose radial Gaussian, radial, this here, and I kept this strength here, this value or whatever you want to call it, on 1, and I randomly entered 9 for the angle just because I accidentally pressed the key, but I could put any angle or just 0 or whatever. Right, now I can look at my preview again, and you can see we've got a little snail here, and then we've got a whole lot of dust across the screen. Maybe there's a better method of doing this. Maybe if I go to the world editor, if I go here and I choose some kind of different variation, maybe that would be better, but I'm going to keep it this way because that's how I originally did it. Okay, so there's one little snail and there's a whole lot of dust. This might actually create problems later because you don't want half a screen full of dust. That's not very attractive. Right, back to the world editor. So if I click on all these pluses, you can see what I've got now. So that one where it says transforms, that's the first one I did, and then the pre-transform, that's the shiny light that I've just put on. Now to make it less confusing, you can actually name them if you want to. For example, if I click here on new variation and go back to the node editor, I can type a name instead. So that was spiral, but I don't need to normally, but you can do that if you want to. Okay, now we're done with the first iterator, and we want to click new iterator, and then it says iterator number 2 here. So again, don't worry about what that word means. We'll just remember that it's just like the main part of our fractal. And now what I would like to do is I would like to have more than one snail. So I'm going to copy this snail, and I'm going to do it like this. I'll click on Flam 3 transforms and transform. And as we know, the transform is the bit of the fractal that lets you add different patterns and shapes to it. You will often find that people just call this X form, like the letter X, or they just call it X, as in X1, X2, X3. So if you read a tutorial where it says X form or X1, 2, 3, it means that you should make a transform. So again, there's nothing here, so I need to go to the node editor and I need to click new transform, and there we've got our linear transform. This is the default one. So I'll go to the preview and see what is happening there. Nothing apparently. I know why that is. No, I don't actually know why that is. Doesn't matter. We'll fix it. Right. Now I'm going to show you how you can copy our little snails. I'm going to click on World Nodes, and then on the second iterator, the one that has linear on it, I am going to click Pre-affine. That just means the bit that you can move around. Okay, so each iterator has its own pre-affine. There's one for iterator 1 and there's one for 2. And this is how I can move these iterators around. So if I go to Node Editor, sorry, it's highlighted this pre-affine now, the one that belongs to iterator 2. And I could now just grab this if I click on the little circle here, and I can just drag it around with my mouse. But that's not very precise, so I'm not going to do this. Just ignore what I'm doing right now. I'm just going to return this to its original position, and we're going to look at some of these settings. So for the moment, we're going to look at this part. So offset, that's all about the position of the triangle on the screen, and it's just like in math, you've got an x-axis and a y-axis, x for going across, y for going up and down. Now I'm going to change the x value to 1, and that means it has moved to the right, okay, because this is a positive number, bigger than 0, so it goes to the right. If I put -1, it goes to the left. Right, I'm gonna shift that back there. Okay, so now it has gone there, and we know how far it will go if we look at these numbers, because 1 means the same as the length of the original triangle. So 1 will shift it across for the same distance as this length. Right. Now, let's have a look at our preview then. Oof. Okay. So here you can see that this has copied these snails across. But now this dust is already starting to cause some problems, and I will address this in a second. Right. Let's have another little look at this. Copying things like this is called tiling, I believe, and you can, if we look at our transform, you can use linear to make copies, but there are also other shapes, other variations that you can use to copy something. For example, sometimes you can use Mobius to copy something, but that will probably make this less regular and will make a blurry kind of effect. Let's just see what it's doing. Has it done it? Possibly. Anyway, you can use Mobius or you can use square depending on what you want to do. So I'm going to put this back to linear, and here we've got our copies of the snail. Right, World Editor. Okay, now right, okay, for the moment I'm going to leave all this blurry dusty stuff there, and no, I'm actually not, sorry, I just need to look at my list and see what my next step is. Right, I'm actually not happy with all of this stuff here, so there's a special trick that I can do. I go back to iterator 1 and click weights, okay, and then I go to the node editor to see what my weights are doing. So the base weight of iterator 1 says 1, so base weight means the weight of the thing itself. And I can use the weight to change how strong each part is. So if I increase this weight to 2, we should see a change here. So this part should become stronger now compared to this part. It's taking a while. Yeah, you can see that now this part has become fainter. I didn't actually change this bit, but it's in relation to each other, and because I made the first one stronger, the others look more faint now. But that's not what I want to do. I'm going to change that back to 1 and leave it as it is. So that is the weight of this first iterator itself, the one where we made the snail and we made the shiny light. Now, we've got a list here, iterator 1, iterator 2, and that means that we can also change how these iterators affect each other. Now, I don't want this first one to throw all this dust onto the second one, so I'm going to set the weight on the second one to 0, and then I'll check, because that should take some of the dust away. Yes, it has. So, oh, but that's also taken my copy away. That's not supposed to happen. Okay, I'll return to that later, I think. So, forget about that. I wrote down that it works like that, but it obviously isn't working. I'm going to put that weight back to 1, and we'll see what we can do about all of this later, and if it doesn't work, well, we'll find another way to do it. Okay, so I've made one copy now, this here, and let's just check. Yeah, my copy is there again, but they are both in the same color, and that's a little bit boring. So I'm going to go back to the second iterator and click shader, because that's what lets me change the color, and I'm going to go to node editor, and I can see all this. But what's that? Right, we'll take a step back and go to the main window and open a window, palette editor. This is where we can see the colors that are available. So we've got this gradient here, which isn't exactly impressive, but that's what it is. And this gradient is basically like a slide rule that starts on 0 at this end and goes up to 1. I think it does go up to 1. It might be 1.5. I don't quite remember now. But I'm assuming now that this is 0 and this is 1, and then around the middle we'll have 0.5. Okay, now these little curves here let us change the color in various ways. So if I move this up and down, you can see it changes from brown, yellow, blue, and so on. So that changes the actual color. Then this saturation curve changes kind of how strong the color is. And then this value curve also does random things. Okay, that'll have to do for the moment. So now I know that if I set my color to 0, it will be this greenish bluish color here. And if I set it to, let's say, 1.3 maybe, it'll be yellow. So I'll minimize that. Oops, there we go. And I will go to my world editor. And just to recap, we're on iterator 2, we've clicked shader. Now we're going to node editor. And if I go on palette location, that lets me choose the color that I want depending on where it is on that gradient. So I'm going to randomly put 1.3 and click enter and see how that changes my fractal. Okay, that looks quite different now. So now we're going to go on copying our snails. So we're going to make a new iterator. Then we need to click on Flam 3 transform again and transforms. And then I'll go back to node editor. Again, there's nothing here. That's because I need to make a new transform. And in this case, again, we do want a linear transform. We don't want to change this because linear lets us copy the original shape. So we'll go back to world nodes now, and we'll click the pre-affine. This is the thing that lets you move the position of this iterator. So we'll go to node editor, and last time I shifted the copy to the right, now I want it to the left. So I'm going to go on X and put -1, and it has jumped to the left. So let's have a look. So we've got snails all across the screen now. But these are again in the same color as the first one in the middle was. So I'm also going to change that color now. So I'll go on world nodes, world nodes at the bottom here. And for the third iterator, I'm going to choose the shader and go back on node editor. And then I'm just going to put 0.7 on the palette location and see what happens. Oh, okay. That'll do for the moment. By the way, these colors in the gradient that comes with Chaotica are quite basic and quite garish, as you can see, but at the moment it would be too difficult to change anything about that, so we're just going to work with what we've got at the moment. Right, now I've got snails all across the screen. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the world editor, and I want to keep copying, so I'm going to make a new iterator, iterator 4. I'm going to click on Flam3 transform, and on transform, and on node editor, and then I'm going to put new transform, and again I'm going to keep it linear because I still want to keep copying. And then I'll go to world nodes, and I'm gonna grab the pre-affine because that lets me shift my iterator. So I'm going to click node editor again, and this time I want to move it down, so I need the Y offset because that is for up and down, and I'm going to put -1, and there you go, it's moved down. So we can look at the preview again. Oh God, I don't remember it looking that terrible when I first did it, but there you go. So it's put the snails up there. So it seems to be the other way around. If you move it down, they go up, and if you move them up, they go down. Okay, again, I want to change the color of these snails, so I go to world nodes. On iterator 4, I choose the shader because that's what changes the color. I go to node editor, and I'll just put 0.4 for the palette location. Could have a little look and see what that actually is, maybe around here or something like that. So there we go. Has it changed the color? Yeah. Okay. Now I'm going back to world nodes, and I'm still not done copying because, as you can see, there's one missing at the top here, and in our picture that means there's nothing at the bottom, and we don't want half of our picture just to be black. So I'm going to go to the world editor, and I'm going to make a new iterator, and I'm going to do the same all over again. So Flam3 transform, blah, or maybe that says flame transform and I'm just not getting it because I'm not cool enough. So transforms, node editor, new transform, keep it linear for copying, go back to world nodes, go to the pre-affine, which lets you shift your iterator, go to node editor, and we're on the Y because we want to go up or down, and because it's up, we're going to put 1, and it's up. Okay, I need to take a little sip of water now. Right, so let's check our preview. Yeah, you can see it's worked. We've got snails all over the screen now. We could also still change the color of the snails we've just made. And actually at this stage, I'm going to look at this palette editor and I'm not happy with it because all of it is either blue or green or yellow in one way or another. So I'm going to try and change that. and I'm going to fiddle with this U curve until I get some red. Why not red? Yeah, let's choose red. And because this is the end of the gradient, hopefully that should be 1.0. Unless I don't remember it correctly, then it'll be something else. So I will go back to my world editor now. Go to world nodes. We're on iterator 5. Shader lets us change the color. Go to node editor. And the poly location would hopefully be 1.0 now, because it's the end. So from 0 to 1, hopefully, unless I've got it wrong. Let's see. What have we got there? Yeah, not looking red at all at the moment. Right, so either I've done it wrong, either it's longer than I thought it is and it would be 1.5, or it's just too faint to see. Let's try that. I'm just going to put 1.5 and see what that does. Ah, there you go. So it does go up to 1.5. So on here, 0, 1.5, and then you've got to estimate where these are. Okay. Right. I'm going back to the world editor now, and I will just do what I told you about before, because that's what I did do in the original version, and maybe I don't need to do it, but I'll do it now so that we get something that looks similar to the picture that you saw at the beginning. So I'm gonna go to iterator 1 and weights, and ignore me because I'm just fiddling with this. Okay. And the weight for iterator, no, which one am I on? Hang on, sorry, I need to check. Well, no, it's, I'm on the wrong one, aren't I? Yes. Ah, I remember what I did wrong. Okay, so, okay, iterator 1, go on weight, click on node editor, and here we go. For iterator 2, I'm going to set this to 0. And that has fixed some of the problems of all of this dusty stuff covering everything up. At least it's removed it from here. It's probably a bit daft. Maybe I don't even need to do that at all, but I did it when I first made those snails, so I'm doing the same now. Don't worry about that. We can learn about that in other tutorials. Right, so now we've got a screen full of snails, which is kind of nice. I mean, it's better than nothing, but it's not very exciting because it's quite repetitive. Okay, now the next thing that I did was the following. There's something I'm not happy with because I think something's not working, but we'll see. World editor, I added a new iterator, number 6, and then we need to click on flame transform and then on transforms, because transforms let us add more shapes, and we go to node editor and there's nothing, so we make a new transform, and then I chose Julia. Don't mix it up with Julian with an N, just Julia, and I put 2. I have no idea why I did that. I just tend to experiment, and it's what I did when I made this. Right, now this Julia has kind of created a whirly-twirly effect where the snails aren't just in a row anymore, but they're all kind of tumbled over now. Okay. This doesn't look very impressive, but there we go. We're nearly finished. Right. Now we will go back to the world editor and go to world nodes, where we can see what we have done so far. And at the very top, you can see camera. Now, we will go to the top there and click toggle camera transform, and a little plus appears next to camera. We'll click there, and that will show us what's inside this camera. And we'll click on the plus of transforms, and there it says linear. Right. I'll explain first. So this transform on the camera is also normally called final transform. And what this means is that basically you are finished doing your fractal, but you want to put another shape on top of all of it, okay? You want to put your finished fractal inside another shape. So I've clicked on this linear now, and I'm going to go to Node Editor. And first of all, I'm going to change the name because we don't want linear. I'm just going to call it Final Transform. And I'll show you what I mean. For example, if I want my snails to be inside a ball, I'll go here and I might choose bubble. Let's try bubble. And I'll keep this on a relatively high value and on 1. And then all my snails should be inside a ball shape. There you go. That's a ball full of snails. Well, yeah, could be more exciting. It's very small, so I'm going to change that to 2. And yeah, there's all my snails inside a ball, but that's not what the actual picture looks like. Remember, this is what we want to get. Okay? Now, you can see that there are these 2 highlights in the image, and that these snails are twisted around even more. So that's what we want to get. So here we go, Window, World Editor. And to remind you, we're on the camera. We've made a camera transform, which I called Final Transform. Go to Node Editor. And for the variation, we are going to choose Foci. And we're going to keep the value at 1, and that will now superimpose another kind of shape on top of all of what we've done. And now you can see these 2 highlights here, which are like the 2 highlights in my original. Okay. Okay, right, so we've got 2 highlights, but that's not all that exciting. But you can see that the snails have also moved, and they're all whirling around this central point here. Right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back here to World Nodes, and you can see that the camera transform has also got a pre-affine. And this lets us move things around. So if we go to Node Editor, we can now move the camera around as well. And what I did on my original was to move the camera down a little bit. So we go to the Y offset, and I put that to 0.3. And you can see that the camera has jumped down now. And we'll go to the preview and see what that has done. Okay, it doesn't look quite like my my picture here, but close enough. I suspect that actually I either changed the angle of the pre-affine of the camera, or I changed the whole camera itself, because you can see the difference here. That is a cross, and that is at an angle of about, how much would that be? Something 45 or something like that. So I could try to create that angle here. And there's 2 ways I could do it. I'm not sure which is the right one now. So I could stay on this pre-affine of the camera, Node Editor, and I could change the angle here. So it says x-axis angle, y-axis angle. That refers to this x-axis and this y-axis. So if I want to get 45 degrees, I'm not good at math, it might either be the counterclockwise or not, or or clockwise. Clockwise, that's the one. I'm just gonna try it. I'm going to put 45 on the x-axis. See, it's gone up by 45 degrees. And 135 on the y-axis, because that means that you've still got 90 degrees in between. So 45 plus 90 makes 135, and the whole thing is tilted over. So I'm going to see what effect that has. No, that's not what I wanted. It doesn't look like my snails do. So I'm going to go to the world editor and reverse all of this again. X-axis on 0 and y-axis on 90. There we go. And now I'm going back to the world nodes and I will see what the camera itself is doing. So I'll click on camera, at the very top, the first thing you can see in the tree, and I go to node editor and it says rotation angle. So that lets us tilt the camera, which will tilt the whole picture. So I put 45 degrees there and pray for better days. So what's it doing? That looks like my original, doesn't it? So obviously that must be what I did originally. We've got the two foci here, faux thingies here, and the snails whirling around like that. Okay, so these colors don't look very impressive. So we could try to change the vibrancy. If we put the vibrancy to 1.4, the colors might become stronger. There you go. These are stronger now. They're still ugly, but never mind. Okay, right. We're not going to go into Chaos Helper and all that now. We'll just have to accept that for the moment these colors are like that. We could possibly make them a little stronger if we go on the palette locator. Sorry, the palette editor. It's there already. And if we increase the saturation, we should get stronger colors. Yeah, okay, these are stronger now. That'll have to do for the moment. But you can see that this still looks very different from my picture, and that's because I used a white background. So at the beginning I showed you how to change the background to white, and that's what we're going to do. So we'll go on these RGB values here and change that to 0.1. Sorry, not 0.1, I'm being silly, it is 0.1 already. Change that to 1, change that to 1, and change that to 1, and we've got a white background. I added a little bit of blue on mine, so I'm going to make that 1.1 to get a slightly blue tinge. And now we've got this, and these snails are looking quite horrible in these colors. But we're going to learn about how to use Chaos Helper to add proper colors another time. Basically, you've got the same kind of shape now that I showed you at the beginning. So you can change that later on once you can change the colors later on once you understand how to use Chaos Helper. So now if I want to take a picture of this, I need to wait a little bit first, because you can see that the program is calculating, it's rendering. So rendering means turning this data into a picture, and the sampling level is 6.6, and it's updating continuously. So normally you might want to go up to level 8 or 9 or 10 or even 11 or 12 or 13, depending on how much detail your fractal has. This doesn't have that much detail, so we can save this as an image now just to see how to do this. So we'll click on File, Save Image, and then we're going to save this somewhere. I'm going to call it Snails for Tutorial, and then it will be on your computer and you can open it in a picture viewer. Okay, but as I said, you might want to work on this in the future to improve the colors, for example. So we also need to save the data, because once we've saved all of this as a picture, Chaotica cannot open it again from a picture. So to save the data, we go to where it says File and we click on there, and then we put Save World. Remember, in Chaotica, world just means this fractal. Save World. And I've got my own little folder where I keep all my parameters, my data. So I'm going to call this Snails for Tutorial, and I'm going to save this. And now I'm going to show you how you can open it again. So if I close all of that down now, I can open my Chaotica again. So imagine this is next time you want to work on it. Go away, random thingies, and I go on File and Open World, and I navigate the mess of my computer, but it's actually there. Snails for Tutorial. There we go. Open. And here are my snails, and I can keep working on them. Okay, so this was the first part of my dummy tutorial. In the next part, we're going to learn more about weights. We're also going to install and use Chaos Helper to get better colors. And what else? Oh yeah, we might use these advanced color settings here to mess around and get some interesting effects. Okay, that's all for now.